Hello, and welcome to Narrative Tales, where I take my sessions from our favorite dice rolling game and turn it into the story that we're trying to tell. So if you don't have the time to sit down and listen to a long actual play session, or you simply want to hear a nice story, sit down and listen to this episode of Narrative Tales. So, in last session, Drock met up with an old friend. Albus headed to his old stomping grounds at the School of Earth and spoke with his old mentor, learned a little bit more about his parents, and got some of their items. Then they headed off to the Shadowfist compound and spoke to Lydia about finding some work. Arriving at Kerburn, a large bustling city, Albus and Drock step into the city proper. Seems like your average city, carts being pulled around and people walking. Various businesses and vendors line the streets. The first thing out of place noticed by the crew is what was described earlier to them. The entire city is a ring a few blocks wide. A well-grown forest lies in the center, taking up the majority of the area. A tall metal fence separates the city from its inner forest. Albus and Drock begin looking around to find someone to speak to about the quest they've been sent on. Following along the main street just on the other side of the fence, it's not terribly long before they happen upon a thick metal gate, guarded by a town's guard. It is an obvious entrance into the forest. Drock addresses the guard posted at the gate. "I'm looking for someone to talk to about entering the forest. We were sent here to possibly find some of the missing participants. Let me take you to my captain." Drock and Albus follow this guard over to a small building some distance away. As the guard enters, he motions them to follow. They enter into the building and see a man dressed slightly better than the guard who had led them there, sitting at a desk reviewing paper documents. "These people say they are here to help find the missing participants." "Ah, welcome to our wonderful city. I'm assuming you were filled in on what's going on?" "Somewhat. Lydia said something about you having an event that hasn't been concluded because participants are missing." "Yes, the Trials of Fate is an event of sorts that our city hosts once a year. 4 families pick a young adult that is of the age to participate. 4 participants enter, only one is allowed to emerge as victor. This is not some cruel punishment, however. The participants are volunteers who must consent to participate. The victor gives their family's name, importance, nobility, and most importantly, wealth. It's a long-standing tradition that gives the less fortunate an opportunity to get to a better place. This isn't some sporting event that we entertain ourselves with as some others think. It has a true meaning and is an integral part of our city. This year, about a month ago, the participants entered, but none have yet to emerge. This event normally only lasts a couple weeks, max. We actually broke our own rules and sent a search party in. We were able to find one of the bodies killed in a traditional sense, but the only other one we found had slash marks that weren't made by any traditional weapon or one they would have entered with. That's when we sent word out to help us end the trial. Nobody has entered since, so if you could enter and solve the problem, you'd be doing Kerburn a great service." "We will do our best." Albus and Drock are escorted by the captain to the nearest gate, and it is opened and subsequently shut behind them. Beginning their investigation, it's not too long before they find the first body, a halfling. It's pretty obvious they died from the injuries sustained from the arrows protruding from their abdomen and chest. As the party continues to advance deeper into the forest, they stumble upon the second body, an elf. They appear to have several large lacerations across their body, but they don't seem to be made from the blade of a sword or any traditional weapon. Further inspection reveals traces of a slimy-appearing fluid that has hardened. Drock looks at Albus. "We need to start looking around this area. There may be more clues nearby as to what attacked this person. This was obviously not done by someone." The two start to fan out and begin looking for whatever other signs there may be. After some time, Albus comes across a fairly large hole in the ground. The ground is saturated with the same slimy, solidified substance as was found on the body. "You may want to see this, Drock." Drock makes his way over to the newly discovered evidence. Beside the hole is a longsword. Track marks can be seen leading down into the hole. It seems there was a struggle as something or someone was dragged down into the hole. Great. Another hole in the ground. Albus and Drock begin heading down into the dark, nasty tunnels. The walls, floor, and ceiling are all lined in the semi-hardened, slimy substance mixed with dirt like disgusting cement. Their feet squish and stick with every step. About 20 feet beneath the surface, they come across a split in the tunnels. One leads out at the same level in one direction, the other leads further down beneath the earth. Should we split up? No, we stay together, Albus. Let's take the straight one first. Choosing to walk down the straighter path, they sludge through the disgusting slime for about a half hour before reaching another hole that leads to the surface. They emerge to a forest. Looking around, the outside of the city can be seen a short distance away. This must be how it got in. Let's go back. A walk some distance back, they emerge back to the intersection, this time choosing to head down the lower path. Drock ahead of Albus. It doesn't take too long before they reach a small cavern, again, still made by whatever it is that they are searching for. At the back of the cavern is a conglomerate mass of the slimy substance. A small head peeks out from the mess. Wide-eyed and with a terrified expression on their face, the apparent participant mouths two simple words. Help me. Drock is only able to take a single step forward towards the trapped individual before the ground bursts forth, and out comes a large insectoid creature. Akin to a praying mantis, it stares them down and gives them a terrifying screech before biting Drock and hoisting him in the air with its mandibles. Do something, Albus! As before in the mine, Albus quickly recites and begins performing an incantation before releasing a burst of arcane energy towards the creature. The creature falls sharply to the ground limp, and releasing the grip on Drock. Drock slips out of the now limp mandibles. He raises his greatsword above his head and drives it down into the creature, shortly ending the battle once more. Drock rushes over to the trapped girl and begins delicately slicing and cutting his way through, freeing the scared and disgusting girl. Albus looks at Drock. Didn't they say there were 4? Where's the last one? A moment of palpable realization comes across their faces before they both turn to the creature. Drock breathes a deep sigh before walking over to it and slicing the stomach open. Out from the slime and green innards falls a limp body, the last of the 4 participants. They carefully and gently help the goo-covered girl through the tunnels and out of the inner forest of Kerburn. Slowly reaching the nearest gate, it only takes a few moments before somebody notices the party and girl coming out. Before long, a large crowd gathers. Everyone is cheering. The party is let through the gate, and the girl is quickly escorted out. They are met with the previous guard captain. Thank you so much. You are truly heroes to our city. I will send word back to Gloria and inform them of your success. You have brought triumph and fulfillment to our city this day. Thank you. The party makes their way back through the cheering crowd, not sticking around to see any more of the city. They leave and begin heading towards Drock's mentor. Continuing their journey, they travel a good distance across the large expanse of plains and then the savannah, and then finally leaving any main road to walk towards the desolate flats. Finally arriving at a large foothill that acts as the barrier between the flats, they make their way upwards. The hillside has been carved out, making room for a small compound. To the right of the compound is a training ground composed of various courses and targets meant to train different abilities. They walk up to the door and Drock knocks. They stand there patiently waiting for a short time with no response. Drock knocks again. The sound of footsteps can be heard heading towards the door. The person on the other side of the door stops at the door, assumably peeking through the peephole. The door is opened. Drock, I've been expecting you. Come, sit. Drock and Albus are led through the door into the compound and sat around a table in a dimly lit room. Who have you brought with you? This is Albus. We met in Korora. Oh. Are you training him to join us? Maybe. I'm not so sure he's ready just yet. Well, you know, I thought the same thing until you snuck out that night, and yet here you are. This is very true. Also, I ran into Vandarin. Oh? Yeah, he's not a part of the Wardens anymore. A look of frustration comes across Artemaeus' face. And what is he doing then? Well, He has moved on to taking jobs, regardless of morality. He seems to no longer care what the task is as long as he gets paid. He's abandoned our code because he cares more about coin. He drugged me and captured me as a twisted way to say hi. Well, he always was one that liked to play jokes. Is he doing anything particularly wrong? Well, I don't know exactly what he's doing. He just mentioned that he was tired of how restrictive our code was and that he can make more coin doing other stuff. He also gave me his pendant. Wow, he's really left us, hasn't he? What do you plan to do about it? That's part of why I'm here. What should I do? Can he even stop being a warden? No. In part, as far as I know, you never just stop being a warden. It is a lifetime commitment as far as the boon you receive and what comes along with that. I wouldn't say you should hunt him down and slay him unless you have undeniable proof that what he is doing is evil. It is best that you look into it further. Gather as much information as possible and keep me updated. We will decide when the time is right. If you have to, though, do what must be done. Understood. Listen, though, Drock. If it does come to blows with him, you must be careful. He is much stronger than you. He could be a very dangerous opponent. I will. What can you tell me about him? He never had an interest in the arcane, and he was not great with any traditional weapons. He much preferred to sit and meditate. He was good with his hands, and he was very nimble in his movements. He took up his staff, and it suited him well. He is extremely fast, and his techniques are very effective. I will remember that. With that aside, I've been pondering something for some time now. What are your plans with the ruins? I hadn't given it much thought. You should start thinking about it. You know, one day you'll be in charge of this, right? What do you mean? I am getting up there in age. When I pass, it will become yours. None of the others are in contact with me, or they're dead. It's unclear, really. You're not like the others, Drock. You will lead the Wardens one day. I have spent all of my life training and growing the Wardens. I haven't had time to unearth any more of the ruins. I always assumed I would, but honestly have no idea what's behind the last chamber. Of course you know. I've never been in it at all. If I were to fail the trial, I could not carry on the knowledge. I will start planning then, Artemis. Speaking of, when is the last time you visited the site? Not since I passed the trials. The party spends the rest of the evening talking amongst one another, getting to know each other and sharing stories before retiring to the bunk bed, lined sleeping quarters, and resting for the night. Waking up early the next morning to the sunrise peeking through the curtain, the smell of freshly brewed coffee is the first thing the party notices. Out of their sleeping quarters, they groggily make their way out, and into the main room of the compound where Artemis sits at the table, drinking his coffee and smoking a pipe. Good morning. Good morning, they both reply. So, Drock, I normally try to teach you something every time you come by. I don't have anything new to teach you, but I have a feeling you may need a refresher. Do you remember your combat maneuvers? I'm a bit rusty. You may have to remind me. Artemis leads the party outside to the training ground. Perform a bull rush on that target over there. Drock readies himself before taking off, sprinting in the mark about 20 feet from him. He grabs the target and successfully pushes it about 10 feet backwards. Albus, viewing something new, seems excited. I want to try. A puzzled look is shared between Drock and Artemis. Alright. You're attempting to run and push that dummy back as hard and as far as possible. I got this. Albus readies himself, as he's seen Drock do just moments before, and then he takes off in a sprint. He gets approximately halfway to the target and trips face first into the dirt, skidding to a stop just short of the target. I'm okay. Physical combat is not your strong suit, Albus. You appear to be better with the arcane. You should stick with what you're good at. Anyways, Drock, remember to use those maneuvers I showed you. They will come in very handy for you. I will, Artemis. I think we're going to be heading out now. Be safe, Drock. Keep me updated. Albus, are you able to communicate over long distances? No, not yet. Either way, I will begin contacting you, and when you're able to, the messages may go either way. Sounds good. As Drock and Albus began heading out, Drock stops. Come with me, Albus. I need to see something before we leave. Drock leads Albus up over the crest of the small mountain, peering over the vastness of the desolate flats. Directly in front of them is a small ravine about 20 feet across and 100 feet long. The bottom of the ravine is filled with water. Cube stones poke out of the water. The cliff faces are sheer. At the end of the ravine, just above the water surface, is a doorway stood at an angle. Drock and Albus make their way to the water's edge. Albus hops on top of the first rock and begins jumping from rock to rock on the way to the doorway. Some distance before the doorway, he takes a leap towards the next rock, slips, loses his footing, and falls down into the water. Swimming the rest of the way, he climbs up to the doorway and peers in. Drock follows suit, jumping from rock to rock without much effort, landing on the other side, dry. Don't enter unless you're prepared to take on the trials. I'm not. I'm just watching from here. Drock enters into the first chamber. A disembodied spirit apparates in front of him. The shining silhouette of a once person acknowledges him, but does not speak. They stand there stoic. How do I get to the rest of the ruins? The spirit looks towards the next chamber. Drock retrieves his pendant, placing it on the ruined pedestal sat in front of the rock wall, and the wall shakes a bit before dissipating. The next chamber is the same, as well as the next two chambers. Drock enters, a spirit apparates, and he moves on to the next. Each spirit takes on a different visage from room to room. He reaches the final chamber, where a potential warden would take on the title and receives their pendant. This chamber is in much worse condition. The ruins on the pedestal are broken and missing pieces. The wall behind it is rubble, buckled and broken. The ruins would have to be fixed or the wall torn down. Drock looks at this chamber spirit. How do I get through? The spirit turns its head at the wall and then turns back to face Drock. You're no help. Drock makes an effort to break through the ruined wall. He kicks it, tries to pick out bits of rubble. He even hits it once with his sword, but to no avail. Something I'll have to figure out. He turns back and heads through the chambers, back outside. Find what you're looking for? Kind of. I'll need to come back to figure it out. Drock and Albus set off back to Chloria.